It's time now for Entre Nous with Solange Mougin. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Jeannie.
So today you are talking about a societal phenomena here in France. It actually happens around the world, and that's to say adult children who essentially never leave their parents' homes. And here in France, we actually have a very particular name for them. We call them les Tanguys.
Yeah, Tanguy is a boy's name here in France. And it's actually a relatively rare one. Its saint day is November 19th. But in French, the name actually carries a very pejorative stereotype because it describes this societal phenomenon of adults living with their parents. And I got to thinking about this when I did a show a while back on the name Kevin and all of the negative connotations that that name has here in France. And, well, like the Kevins in France, there may be a bit of revenge coming for the Tanguys. But before I get into how perceptions may be changing in regard to this stereotype, let's first break down why Tanguys are called Tanguys here, and also what they are called in other nations as well. So the association with this societal phenomenon began because of a 2001 film where a 28-year-old wouldn't leave his parents' home, and it went to great comedic lengths. They went to great comedic lengths to get him to leave. It was a blockbuster hit here, and there was even a Boomerang kid version or a sequel called Tanguy Returns. And in other nations, there have been other films like it, such as Failure to Launch. And many parents sympathize with the difficulty of getting a now adult child to move out. And vice versa for young people as well, that existential moment where it is time to leave the nest, but you're not so sure how to, and you're not so sure if you can. And that tension of being an adult, but also being chez maman and papa, it hasn't really changed much over the years.
By the way, I ironed your clothes this morning, and kindly don't crumple them in a ball. Oh, she's so annoying. That's absolutely not normal. You can't imagine when you have a baby, a child, a teenager, that they'll still be here at 30.
Now, statistically, today in France, there are more adult sons who live with their parents than daughters. And according to a report by the Fondation Abbé Pierre from 2024 on housing, in fact, there are nearly 5 million young adults that are in this situation of living with mom and dad. And it's not just France. In other nations, there are other terms. In Japan, the word that's often used is parasite singles. Yeah, that's what I mean. In Italy, which is actually notorious for this, people are often called mama's boys. In many Anglophone countries, the kids are often called boomerang babies or boomerang kids, or ones that return later in life to their parents' homes.
Right, if they ever leave in the first place. So
Exactly.
Those are some of the different names for this phenomena in different countries. Are there some places where there are more of these cases than others?
Yes, according to Eurostat, the average age of young adults in Europe that leave home is 26 and 2 months to be precise. The oldest average age goes to Croatia at 31, and the youngest to Scandinavian nations with an average of 21 years old. Now, France, it's in a bit of the mid-range with this, with an average of 23 and a half years old when you leave mom and dad's. This matches up pretty well, actually, with the OECD's numbers. It found that some 80% of Italian 20-somethings live with their parents. Greece is just behind that. France is actually in 9th place with 47%, and again, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, you're in the low 10 percentage points of young adults that live with their parents. Now, the reasons for this vary widely. It's often cultural, but it can also be financial. And one of the major ones actually here in France is geographical. It's geography. France's National Statistics Institute, INSEE, came out with a study in 2025 that showed that teens and young adults that live in rural areas, they are nearly 3 times more likely to leave the home early compared to city kids or city adults. Half of the rural ones left their parents' home by the age of 19 in the countryside, whereas in cities it's 1 in 6 that still lives with their parents past the age of 26.
Now, earlier, Solange, you mentioned that there might be a slow reversal or at least a shift in the perception or negative perception of these adult kids that never leave or come home. Tell us about that.
Well, this may be due to increased necessity. The cost of living and the housing housing crisis in many cities and many countries have made this quite clear. So with young people not being able to afford rents in cities, in some cities, living with parents often makes a lot of economic sense. That combined with increasing wealth inequalities between, say, retired parents and young professionals, it can also make sense. And then there's also the potential reverse need, or aging parents taking advantage or needing to have their middle-aged children to be there to help them. Now, of course, such scenarios are not the norm, nor are they necessarily ideal, but it is becoming a thing. For example, in Canada, intergenerational living is increasing and has by 45% in 20 years. Today, there are nearly 20% of the population that lives in households with 3 or more generations. The government even offers tax credits for this, as it's helping out with the housing crisis. There's also another phenomenon, this one on social media, that's called tradsons. Now, what's a tradson? Well, Vanity Fair tells us it's an adult son who lives with mom and dad, but actively participates in the household chores and the family budget, potentially. Actually, this influencer phenomenon has often gotten some heat from trad wives, as it portrays another form of masculinity, where men do help around the house. Nonetheless, these trad sons, some people actually call them hub sons, which I think is a bit weird. They could potentially be shifting the needle of traditional perceptions of what a Tanguy is.
Solange, thank you so much for that. And thanks to you for watching France 24. Stay with us.